Well, good morning. Good morning, everyone. This beautiful Sunday morning, we welcome you here, and those of you on Zoom. I'm Dave Bianchi, and I'm serving as your worship associate today. We'd first like to recognize that we sit here today on the lands that were once occupied by the Paiute, Shoshone, and Washoe peoples, and who continue to be stewards of our lands and offer a spiritual presence amongst us. It is our mission here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northern Nevada to grow together in love, faith, justice, and joy. Now, if you're new to us, know that we are a welcoming community and that we care deeply for all people, regardless of their racial identity, age, economic circumstances, immigration status, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Those of you on Zoom will remain muted during the service, but we welcome your comments in the chat box, and you can stay on and visit with one another following the service. So if you have a joy or concern that you would like to share with the congregation, please fill out this information sheet that can be found in the seat pocket in front of you or in the back of the room. And if you would fill these out and hand those to me during our gathering, or our greeting time, that would be very helpful, and we'll share them later in the service. So thank you for being with us today, and as is our tradition, we have plenty of announcements. So this morning, after the service, I believe there's an informative tour of our campus. Is Gaia here? I don't see. She's not here.
I put her down somewhere and I don't remember where.
Okay. So are you doing the tour?
She's here somewhere.
Okay. Gaia Brown will be available after the service for any of our guests, visitors, new folks, anyone who wants to know more about who we are and what we do, and she'll be back there by the tech area. So grab your coat and meet Gaia Brown there at the tech area at 11:40 or shortly after the service. And if you find you have to leave during the tour, it's okay, you can peel off. On 126, Nathan, with the support of members of the board and a committee on shared ministry, will be leading an in-person listening circle focused on ministerial leadership as our congregational leadership prepares to take the next steps in search for a contract minister. We want to hear about the qualities and priorities that are most important to you. So no minister will be able to fulfill all of our expectations, believe it or not, but it's important that we as leadership keep the needs of the community in mind as we develop contract and begin the search process for a contract minister. So there will also be a digital survey from our Zoom members and people unable to make the listening circle next week. So contact Nathan at uufnn.org if you have any questions. We also have an announcement that was made last week from Adrian Fisher and Nancy Thompson about Soul Matters, which is a small discussion group. I believe Bob's going to talk a little bit more about Soul Matters during his presentation. But just to let you know, it's coming up soon. So the first Thursday of the next month from 6 to 8 here at the fellowship. And then there'll be a Zoom meeting on the fourth Thursday from 4 to 6. And there'll be packets in the gathering room. Rosalind will be out in the gathering room also taking sign-ups. Rosalind's up front here. And also want to remind folks that there's an interfaith gathering tonight, actually this afternoon at 4 o'clock at the McKinley Art Center on Vine and Riverside. Lois and I show up at those every year, and it's really a great opportunity. So I think that ends our announcements. The worship leader reminded me that this is when we greet one another, isn't it? So it'll be an opportunity to say hello to all of our friends and new friends as we wander around and greet each other, and I'll ring the singing bowl when it's time to return. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Bob Alto, the worship leader for today, and I'm known by the pronouns he, him, his. Our focus today will be on love. And so get ready. But we will now light the chalice. Dave will light it as I say the following words. That's why those metaphors of comforting quilts which wrap us in warmth will never do. True love is always a thunderstorm that cracks us clean open so the echoes of other breaking hearts can make their way in.
We're doing 1029 in the teal book. It's Love Knocks and Waits for Us to Hear. Yeah, stand up. We have the words too.
We are entering the time of our service when we take the opportunity to quiet ourselves for reflection, prayer, meditation. And we especially call out those who have shared their joys and concerns with us either here or on Zoom or quietly in our own minds and hearts. And Jackie has provided updates for two of our members who have had some medical problems recently. Chris Cochran continues to improve during his rehab. And the same goes for John Franks. John continues to improve as he has entered rehab. And Jackie asked about visitors, and they're not quite ready for those yet. So we'll keep you updated on both Chris and John as they improve. So now let's take just a few moments to make ourselves comfortable, putting our feet down on the floor, settling into your seat, breathing in and breathing out, and breathing in and breathing out. Continue to breathe in and breathe out as we go into our own thoughts during this quiet time. I'd like to close with the words of Thich Nhat Hanh. Let us be at peace with our bodies and our minds. Let us return to ourselves and become wholly ourselves. Let us be aware of the source of being common to us all and to all living things. Evoking the presence of the great compassion, let us fill our hearts with our own compassion towards ourselves and towards all living beings. Let us pray that we ourselves cease to be the cause of suffering to each other. With humility, with awareness of existence of life and the suffering that are going on around us, let us practice the establishment of peace in our hearts and on earth. Amen, and so may it be. This weekend, of course, we're celebrating Martin Luther King Jr. But it was April 4th, 1968, Lois's and my 4th anniversary, but we were not together. She was finishing up her teaching contract back here. Back here was a little rented house on D Street in Sparks. I was across the country just beginning my officer basic training at Fort Eustis, Virginia, when word came down that Martin Luther King Jr. had been killed by an assassin bullet in Memphis, Tennessee. I was told to prepare for riot duty up north in Washington, D.C. Well, my first reaction was, I've had zero training for that kind of duty. But my second thought was, there goes his legacy of nonviolent protest that had brought so many gains to the civil rights movement. Fortunately, I never had to report to riot duty, but my second concern was more complex, and frankly, it still is. Martin Luther King Jr. preached love. And he was loved because he fought battles with ideas, with clarity, and with purpose. But it was a much harder path. But he endured. He was quoted as saying, "Love is the greatest force in the universe." And he said, "I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love have the final word in reality." And then, hate is too great a burden to bear. Hatred paralyzes life. Love releases it. And his most famous quote, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." It was a long and hard battle, but his birthday was finally designated as a national holiday and signed into law by President Reagan in 1983. So as we talk about love today, let us not forget his message to all of us. Sometimes we have to screw up our personal courage and speak out against those forces that preach hate. Let us remember the legacy of Martin Luther King, Jr. Amen. And so may it be.
If you remember some of the bygone topics that have emanated from this podium, one was delight. Remember finding things in your life that delight you, and then put them in a box when you need them to bring them forth, to bring you happiness or some reflection of joy. There was mystery. And then there is, of course, my talk on musicals and how they inspire us. We find determination with Fanny Brice and A Funny Girl. We find passion in a chorus line. You were so good at doing this, I've incorporated it into this talk. I'm going to give you the first lines, and then you will sing the rest of the line. Are you ready? Okay. Love and marriage, go together like the horse and carriage. Okay, stop, enough. Okay. What's love got to do with it? Love is a second-hand emotion. Okay. These both describe different ends of the spectrum, if you think about it. The first, coupling and commitment, whereas love, what's love got to do with it, is two different individuals coming together, highlighting the physical and immediate nature of attraction. From Soul Matters. But here is the secret, the inevitable awakening, the wonder that each of our lives is meant to reveal. Love doesn't just love us, it asks us to become it. I'll repeat that. Love doesn't just love us, it asks us to become it. Yes, it wants us to be whole and strong, but love's deepest longing is that we use that strength to tear down the structures that leave others bloodied and bruised. We must always remember what Selma's prophet of peace regularly preached. Love and power are always rightly wed. Well, today I'd like to share with you some of the origins of love, the types of love, a story of all ages that tells us about the simplicity of love, and then finally, ways to practice love by doing and not just by thinking. A short history of love. Ancient Greece, actually, they go back and talk about love 5,000 years ago. The bride was never allowed an opinion. That went on for a long time. Actually, in Europe, I remember in the mid-'80s, up to the mid-'80s, a woman, if she got divorced, would go with nothing. The man had the right to all of the assets, including the children. Now again, in ancient Greece, the bride had no say, and the family determined whether or not the suitor was well suited for his daughter. Interestingly enough, in the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church inaugurated or instituted the sacrament of marriage. The idea was a blessing that physical love would transform into a more spiritual love. Love was supposed to arise in and from marriage. At the end of the 11th and 12th century, poets of southern France invented a courtly love, which was outside of the institution of marriage. Now, where does love come from? We see it every day. I love this, I love that. I got a little card indicating, of course, to give an offering, but it was from the Friends Committee on National Legislation, and they had two little tabs that I could glue on wherever I wanted to glue them, and they said, "Love thy neighbor, no exceptions." And then another little tab said, "Love, period, peace, period, justice, period." When we take our collection, we say we dedicate it through love. And if you remember Nathan's talk last week, the new principles that are indicated by UU center around but include the center, which is love. Where does the word love come from? Well, it comes from European roots, and I found all kinds of variations of this. But luba, which is a European root meaning care or desire, and that was 12th century. Then by the mid-13th century, to be in love, to have a passionate attachment. Love life references one's collective amorous activities. Love beads, 1968. Love bug, 1983. Love handles, 1967. The oldest reference to love comes from the Latin amor, which is associated with Cupid, which is coming up really very shortly. And remember, we take one day out of the year to express love. So what's love got to do with it? Love has different types depending on people and different contexts and experiences. As I was researching this, I found there were 5 that I'll tell you about, but there's up to 7 or 8 depending on which reference you use. The first is eros, sexual and physical. I see that you have a great body, and I love your lips. It's romance, it's passion, it's physical wants. Those are the priorities of an eros love. Storge, S-T-O-R-G-E. Now that's the love we share with family, with parents, with siblings. It also can be a person that you consider as family. Anybody that treats you with compassion and with deep emotional contact. That is storge. The third is pragna, need-based love, focusing more on wants and needs rather than emotion, picking a partner who is right for the long term. The fourth, ludus, tending not to like commitment, enjoys a strong sense of eros in the initial phase, but since it can't last, doesn't stay in the relationship. Think of today's player. Oh, he's a player. She's a player. Lastly, 5, mania, obsessive, controlling, stems from jealousy and insecurity. Now that we've discussed the different types of love, let's go to a simple explanation of love. This comes from the book, That's Love, by Sam Williams. I can't name the look that I see on your face. It isn't a color. It isn't a place. It's a feeling I feel, so appealing, so real. Is it love? The muddles, the laughs, the cuddles, that's love. A great big smile, the softness of silence, and all the while, that's love. Being kissed, being missed, that's love. Wanting to share, wanting to care, that's love. Knowing life is for living, being forgiving. When it all goes wrong, that's love. Holding me when I cry, helping me to try again, that's love. Seeing the good the way we all should, being special, being there, the way you are, the way you care. That's love. It's already been pointed out about soul matters. I probably came into UU because of what was formerly known as Chalice Circle. And I drove twice a month to join a group where we took a theme, and this theme this month is Liberating Love. And not only were we told to think about it and to read about it, but in fact, to share our responses in a 2-hour get-together, where we learned a lot about each other, but we learned to connect, we learned to communicate, we learned to think, we learned to develop, we learned to do. And so the next few things I'm going to share with you come from Soul Matters, the booklet on liberating love. Now, again, a pitch was made for Soul Matters, and I'd like to respond again to Rosalind, if you raise your hand, and Nancy, if you raise your hand. They're the ones trying to get another group going or groups going, so you can have the same satisfaction and the same blessing that all of us have, meeting once a month for 2 hours to, again, have impact on the theme itself. It was those meetings that drew me closer to the UU principles. And I can say I'm literally here because of that. Now, what they do and what the packet contains is some spiritual exercises. So I'm going to give you some things to do about liberating love, even if you don't go, but you listen to me. Okay. It says, as we look at the spiritual exercises, and may I say, the packet has poetry, references to videos, quotes, etc. things for you to think about, but to do something with. Okay? Okay. Now, this is a list. We've all been saved, sustained, healed, and transformed by the love of close friends and families, as well as those who only briefly crossed our paths in big and small ways. But we forget. So this exercise is to spend one day, one sitting, or spend a week working on it. But whatever amount of time you devote to this, make it roomy enough to allow your memory to widen. First, it'll start with quieter moments and single exchanges, and then it will take time to develop within your brain. Now, what are you supposed to do? Okay, well, what you're supposed to do is make a list. Remember the people that touched your lives. And so you just write down this person, this thing, this person, not thing, sorry, this person that has crossed your path, has touched your path, has given you liberating love. Okay? Now, after you do this, you might want to read it aloud and pay attention to which names catch your throat or bring an unexpected tear. Add a second column to your list and write down the gift that their love gave you. Now, most of us will start this chronologically. That's meaning when you were maybe in elementary school, or even before then, if you remember so, and then work your way up until today. Now, I can't share all of my list with you, but these are a few. My mother, whom I would take to New York to see a show, and the Hare Krishnas would be nearby, and they would be singing Hare Krishna, and I would turn to see my mother, and she was gone. Where was she with the Hare Krishnas? She also was always the rock. I used to get up at 3:30 for a summer job one time, and she would always have breakfast for me. She would always have eggs and bacon and something nourishing, but she was always there. My ex-wife, we had 5 children together. Every time I was there as the babies were born, and how she suffered and yet brought those wonderful blessings of children into our lives. I always thought she was much smarter than I was. And she was indeed, I think. But she was a wonderful woman, and I have many gifts because of her. Annie Hagenmeyer. Part of my life was I was a Mormon missionary at one time in Germany. I met this woman called Annie Hagenmeyer. And every time we would meet, she would make jokes. She was a Pentecostal Christian. But she invited me into her home. And I had a companion. But we used to have this exchange when we finally would meet. And she would say, "Who are you?" And I would say, "Well, I'm Elder Alto." "Who's Elder Alto?" And so forth. And then we would break everything down and just kind of laugh. But the most touching moment with Annie Hagenmeyer was a visit I made. I wasn't allowed to, but I did it anyway. I went to visit her. What she prepared for me was duck. Duck was a special treat in Germany, especially for people in your family or otherwise. It was kind of like the top of the mark, filet mignon, if you could say so. But what happened next I'll never forget. She took me into the kitchen and she said, I want you to have this. And she had her enclosed hand and then slipped it into mine and held my hand and said, I want you to have this. What it was a band of gold. It was her husband's wedding ring. And she gave it to me. I still have it. And when I look at it, I think of that blessing and that moment and that relationship. Another list of loves. Besides people who love us are the things we love. They both liberate us, just in different ways. Create a list of what you love to remind yourself that life is friend, not foe. By stacking up all the things we find precious, we are reminded that this life of ours is also precious and generous at its core. So give yourself the liberating gift this month by creating a giant list of all the things you love about life. Now, this is asking you what to think, but to do. What are some of the liberating things in your life? Make a list of 50. Why not make your goal to list 100? I have 3 that I'd like to share with you. Number 1, living in Reno, but also coming from the beautiful Mendocino County in Northern California, where I spent most of my life. It's the beauty, it's the resources, and it's the people. Theater. I've mentioned this before, of course. I'm a theaterphile. I love live performances, but I love live music. I love live theater. I love live dance. And you'll find me, beware, hustling tickets to get into the Pioneer Theater with a sign. And guess what? I got to see the Book of Mormon yesterday. Yeah, baby. Yeah. That's what we're talking about. Now, some people would be embarrassed. I am 83 years old. And some people would be embarrassed. But guess what? I help other people. The person who gave me my ticket yesterday had a daughter who couldn't come because her father had an injury and she wanted to make sure she could stay with him. So she had an extra ticket, which she said, oh, I've got an extra ticket. How much are you willing to pay? Now, let's tell you I'd rather pay nothing. But she said, whatever you want. Oh, that's a good line. Whatever you want to pay. Well, I ended pay. Well, I'm not going to tell you how much I paid. But I did pay, and we had a lovely exchange. Just a lovely exchange, and had a lot of fun at the musical. The third part of me is I am the bargain shopper from hell. Okay? I know when Christmas candy gets 80% off, and I'm going for that deal. I know at my local supermarket when the meat gets reduced, and guess what? I pay half of what you normally would pay. Now, if there's a coupon involved, I'll use it. If there's a digital coupon I'll use it. Okay, enough about me. Also included in Soul Matters, some love questions. I won't share all of them, but here's a few of them for you to think about. What did love mean to you as a child? Whose love has companioned you the longest? Has love ever scared you? We know that self-love and self-care are essential, but which part of yourself most needs love and care right now? Your physical self? Your emotional self? Your intellectual self? Your relational self? Your spiritual self? Your sensory self? Your hidden self? Your pleasure-seeking self? Fearful self? Childhood self? Hopeful self? What do you know of a love that will not let us go? And lastly, what has been your greatest act of love? So in closing, we found that love goes back the term 5,000 years or 12th century or 15th century. We've talked a little bit about the types of love. What kind of love is mostly in your life? We talked about enhancing love, not just by thinking about it, but by doing something about it. And again, I would invite you to the Soul Matters. I'd like to close with this quote. We recognize love as the thing that allowed us to finally remove our masks, or that which said, I don't want you to take it off until you are ready. We were taught love by those who arrived in the middle of our fear and shook as we shook, instead of simply trying to make our trembling stop. And so I leave these thoughts with you, and I do it. Amen, namaste, and so be it.
Well, this is the time of our service when we offer our bounties with each other to continue the positive and far-reaching outreach to our fellowship and the greater community. So a basket will be passed, and those on Zoom, you can follow instructions that are on the screen. You can also mail a check to the office, or better yet, just sign up for automatic giving. So one of the many things I love about this fellowship is that each month we choose a nonprofit to share our plate with. And this month we'll be donating to the Parkinson Support Center of Northern Nevada. Well, joining us today to talk a little bit about the Parkinson Support Center is a friend of mine, so it was good to see Dr. Mindy Lotchkin. Dr. Lotchkin and I served on the Education Alliance board together. So Mindy, would you come forward and share a little bit with us?
We have the vertically challenged. Okay. Thank you, Dave. It was wonderful to see you today. It was a very wonderful surprise. And thank you all for inviting me today here, Lily and all the others. Our organization is just over 3 years old, 3.5 years old. We are the only nonprofit serving the Parkinson's disease community in Northern Nevada. Parkinson's disease is the fastest growing neurodegenerative disease in the world. There are some estimates that it might even outnumber people living with Parkinson's, may outnumber those living with Alzheimer's in the next 20 years. Why is it growing? We don't know, but it is. I'm sure everybody here knows somebody with Parkinson's, has known somebody, or has it themselves. It's at least 1% of the population, and so that's about 5,000 people in Northern Nevada who have been diagnosed with Parkinson's, and many people estimate for every person diagnosed, there's 2 or 3 people who probably have it and they don't know it or haven't been officially diagnosed. So our organization, keeping it to 2 to 3 minutes, our organization offers support services, educational programming, and advocacy. For support services, we have some support groups. We have a mentor program where we pair people newly diagnosed with people with experience with the disease. That can be people living with the disease or care partners, family members, etc. And we offer educational programming. We just had a presentation yesterday on oral health issues in Parkinson's. Once a month now, we have a wonderful grant from the Pennington Foundation to support this educational programming. So it is hybrid like this and recorded and will be on our YouTube channels. So we have monthly educational programming emphasizing local resources and information for people living with Parkinson's. We have a new scholarship program where we're offering scholarships for people with financial need to be able to participate in exercise programs that we have deemed are really specific for Parkinson's. And this program is just starting this month, because exercise is the most important thing for people living with Parkinson's. It helps with movement, it helps with balance, it helps with stability and avoiding falls. And we do advocacy. I was the person who spearheaded SB 390 the last legislative session, which is the bill that is establishing a statewide research registry for all people with neurodegenerative disorders. So that's Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, ALS, MS, Lewy body dementia, any of the chronic debilitating neurologic disorders. So we are really excited. That's going to be housed at the UNLV Brain Health Department, and I'm active in connecting people and getting things organized. So that's kind of a thumbnail picture of what we do and who we are, and I will be here after if there are questions, and I have cards, rack cards to hand out if you would like to spread the word. Our real goal is to improve the lives of people living with Parkinson's, their care partners, their family members, and making sure that it's normalized in a way. Just because you have a tremor, walk slowly, have some other difficulties, doesn't mean that you cannot function. There are people who are working, who are pilots, who my sister-in-law is an optometrist, with Parkinson's. You just don't know, and it's everywhere. We just want everybody to live as well as possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mandy. As we all know, several of our members have been afflicted with this disease, and so we have a personal connection. And so please give generously, and with the ushers, please come forward. So let us repeat together the offering response to the work of this fellowship, which is helping more people grow in love, faith, justice, and joy. We dedicate ourselves, and these are offerings. And as we extinguish the chalice today, I read the words of Elizabeth Shell Jones. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Our closing hymn is 318 in the gray book. It should come up on the screen as well. It's We Would Be One, and you may stand. Oh, no lyrics on the screen, so pull out the books if you're able and sing along.
As now we join the
standing for the benedictions.
If you'd like to join hands for a sense of community, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, then put your hand to your heart. Blessed is the Path by Eric Williams. Blessed is the path on which you travel. Blessed is the body that carries you upon it. Blessed is your heart that has heard the call. Blessed is your mind that discerns the way. Blessed is the gift you will receive by going. Truly blessed is the gift that you will become on the journey. And maybe this is where the second secret comes loose. As I shake the walls to let others free, I learn that the ones I've liberated include me. May you go in peace, resolve, and truth. Blessed be. Amen and namaste.